Alright, so this week, these are not in a package. I had to open it up because, as you might have guessed, my copy of Tears of the Kingdom arrived in the same thing as them, and so I kind of had to get it, in order to play it, I had to get through this. But, you know, I still will unpackage these as Awashi, Part 1, Blu-ray. So I see this is regions A and B. That's an English dub. Keep your eyes on the goal. Is soccer, or football in most countries. But, you know, I kind of appreciate soccer. I wish I had a better name for football americano. You know, people say hand egg, but it kind of ignores the reason of why football is called football. And why there's been multiple kinds of football, and while soccer is the most popular one. Oh well, anyways, blah blah blah. We've got disc 1. We've got disc 2. We've got these guys. Don't know much about the show. Do feel like the sleeve is a little high. There we go. Oh, maybe it's a little catty one, but still. Next up, we have The Demon Girl Next Door, Season 2. Complete collection. Blu-ray? Blu-ray. Well, pretty sure this is Blu-ray only. I mean, of course it says Blu-ray up there, and it doesn't have a sleeve that says Blu-ray DVD. Anyways, the point is, I'm fairly certain I haven't watched Season 2, and I haven't gotten it on DVD Blu-ray before. The first season came out like 3 years ago or something crazy like that. Maybe more? Well, the point is, it's here now, and I'm definitely curious about it. I'm not sure how well I remember the first season, but I do remember it wasn't as strong as storytelling, such that I absolutely would need to. Horns and a tail violate any school dress codes. So I see this is region A. I see this has an English dub. There's a little bit of plastic here that refused to come off earlier. I should have put that somewhere easier. Now it'll take me forever to clean that off the floor. Oh well. I don't remember her, but she did show up. Well, in any case, I think this is strong on my radar. And then finally we got Restaurant to Another World, Season 2. Sorry, I was just thinking, did I watch Season 2? I watched Season 1. I'm pretty sure I finished Season 1, if I remember correctly. Well, this should be a limited to... This is... Well, I do see this is regions A and B, with an English dub. A 5-star. There's room in this to store Season 1. Oh, motherfucker. I'm not sure where Season 1 is. Fortunately, this is not a channel for kids. Which is why I kind of felt comfortable saying it, because it's like, talk about first world problems, right? I think this is a Blu-ray and DVD version, because I filled Blu-ray, and these are probably DVD versions. That's DVD. We've got the big art in the back. Kind of hard to see it all, but it's definitely a very pleasant back. Roof. Neat stuff in there, and there's some stuff in here too. Granted, this stuff probably won't live in here long term if I can ever find out what in the world I did with Season 1. Oh, interesting. This is recipe. Rare cheesecake tart. Oh, I see. So this is kind of the recipe and the instructions. Omelette rice. Seafood ragu pasta. It's actually kind of neat. I'm going to put these back in order for no reason, because it doesn't really matter. And well, eventually I'll find out. Let's see, can this also fit in there? Usually, yeah, okay. Alright. Now, I've got other stuff to show, and there was, of course, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, I showed this before. There's not much to this. It's a non-limited edition version, so it's pretty straightforward. You may notice the cartridge is already gone, because, of course, I played it a little bit. But, I also got some more tabletop games. For whatever reasons, but some of it is improving what I have access to. I'm not a big tabletop game person, but I got 2 dice games that I've played before and kind of enjoyed. Cthulhu Dice and Zombie Dice. And I guess the idea of Cthulhu Dice is you're basically a bunch of Cthulhu cult members with sanity, and you roll the die and challenge people and trade sanity, and then eventually, people go completely insane and aren't part of the game anymore. It's a simple concept, but, that's the idea. Is dice games can be really nice, simple things to pick up sometimes, and I decided to get a couple of these just in case, we need to throw something simple in there. Zombie Dice, you play a zombie, and your goal is to hunt for brains, and you need to hunt for brains without getting shot too many times. And it's a simple score accumulation dice game, but, it kind of has a neat twist to it. The dice have colors to indicate how hard it is to get brains from those survivors, so you can make decisions based on what you managed to collect so far as to whether to continue going and score more points or to just accept the points you have right now. Simple enough. I've never played it before, but Hanabi sounded kind of neat. It's a cooperative game, so I did also have a goal of finding more cooperative games, just because when I did some tabletop gaming with my parents and a friend, I got the impression that most of us are just not very competitive. So I'm looking for more stuff where, maybe we have other ways to do it. And the idea of this game is, oh yes, you're running a fireworks festival, but oops, you forgot to set it up in advance and the lights are out, it's dark and you can't see anything. So you basically communicate with each other in order to create a fireworks show. You can't see your own hand, but everybody else can see your hand, basically. It's interesting. I decided to get Codenames Duet. I think you could probably run some sort of version of Duet similar to how the current game, except, I guess there's just specific cards that you need. Like, the cards that tell you who needs to guess for what in order to get things, Sorry, I'm describing it poorly. This doesn't show it. But the idea is, both sides are working to try to identify all the words, but each side only has half of them. And I guess there's probably 2 assassins on the field or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But it sounds straightforward enough. I decided to get Dominion. Although this one I didn't get in mind for my parents, but just like, I remember playing this a couple of times, and it was just kind of pleasant. It's a deck building game where the idea is you play your entire deck for your turn, and as a part of doing that, you purchase stuff and or more stuff or something like that. And then, last but not least, I got Mysterium, which is a nice cooperative game where somebody plays a ghost and a bunch of psychics are trying to figure out how the ghost died. And the ghost can only communicate in mysterious, abstract cards. So it's a bit like Dixit, but more cooperative. And then, last but not least, since I'm showing stuff, I got myself Jigglypuff mug. Another one, I already had one before, and the Jigglypuff plushie. The idea here being that, well, maybe I should actually switch to the next video and talk about that one slightly later. Because here's this week's anime DVD collection update. Alright, let's, I wonder if I can talk through this real quick. Here's hoping I can. So I watched episodes 42 through 48, Cannot enunciate. I watched episodes 42 through 46 of ReZero Season 2. It's a rewatch for me, but watch for first time for my friend. A reminder of me of some of the stuff that happened, because while I thought I remembered a lot of the stuff that happened in at least general enough details, there were a couple of moments I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's so damn surreal. Good ReZero stuff. A lot of stuff happening in this parts of Season 2 for the past couple of watching sessions are just the stuff that are some of the best stuff this show has. Good stuff. So we specifically watched 5 of the remaining 9 episodes, so that this coming Friday we can probably watch the 4 remaining episodes and my friend can finish Season 2. Now what we do after that is a little more up in the air. I'm hoping that we do move on to the movie, but we might switch gears to look at some other stuff. See, for my own exploration, I watched the first 2 episodes of Onipan, which the timing is a little weird because of stuff on High Dive that I was eyeing to kind of just casually watch for my own interest. Onipan and Demon Girl Next Door Season 2 were both there, but I'm like, Onipan seems familiar. I guess I got that Blu-ray recently, but actually it's coming out next week. Spoiler alert. So I think that means you'll see it next week. Well, I mean, I say next week, but technically it's coming out the day that you're watching this video, because I'm ordering the stuff that's coming out the week that it would come out, as opposed to pre-ordering it and then hoping that it shows up in time for me to record it, because now I'm recording on the Monday night before, and I don't know, it's a combination of laziness and also trying to control the timing of when anime comes in, so that I don't have a week where I just have nothing to show y'all. So, if you ever wonder why things are timed the way they are, that would be it in a nutshell. But despite that mix-up, I guess I ended up watching the first 2 episodes of Onipan. Seems okay. I'm not 100% sure what I would watch it for. The comedy doesn't seem that bad. It just doesn't, scratch my itch perfectly. It just seems kind of amusing, yeah. Entertaining. In episode 1, they decided to go absolutely fucking nuts with their animation for the end there, but that doesn't seem to be a recurring theme in the show. It has some parts which does have some more animation in episode 2, but not to the same degree as episode 1. So I'm not sure that this is supposed to be we'll just blow their mind away with animation thing. I think it's supposed to be sort of the humor, and I can see it more than some of the other shows I've been watching, but at the same time, episode 3 was not a high enough priority. I mean, can you blame me? Tears of the Kingdom came out this week, and I haven't... I barely played that at all. I'll talk about that later. But, yeah. Let's see. Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, episode 4. A fairly entertaining episode, I would say. Just thinking what exactly would I want to say about it that may or may not be spoiler, and I don't know. So... let's just leave it there. It's been a cute and entertaining show. And I think episode 4 continues to be. I think if you like the first couple of episodes, you'll probably still enjoy watching it up to this point. Kamikatsu Working for God in a Godless World, episode 6. Like I said, episode 5 kind of made you wonder, whoa, what is this show doing? In a very good way. And episode 6 continues on it without kind of really disrupting some of what you understood the show. It's just kind of been recontextualized at best, I think, but in a good way that's I guess this show actually has a lot more life to it than I would have thought. And it did end with that ending, which is very interesting and entertaining. The show continues to just have its antagonism be just right, so that it's not too stressful to watch, I guess. Sometimes antagonism in the show can be. And at the same time, it's not being too one-tracky with the way it's doing it. It's continuing to be amusing. Konosuba, An Explosion on This Wonderful World, episode 4. What happened in this episode? Entertaining stuff? Maybe setting stuff up to have more forward momentum than the series felt like it would have, which is a good thing. It means that the show isn't, let's just stay in this one place in time and see how fun it is. It's telling a bigger story than that. But, you know, and as usual, the rest of Konosuba is definitely more entertaining. This one feels like it's lacking a lot, most likely because it just doesn't have the same mixing pot of comedic elements to work with. It's not necessarily bad in that regard. It's, I think, just not throwing a bunch of excellent stuff at the wall and seeing what doesn't stick, basically, because Konosuba is just funny like that. Let's see, The Legendary Hero is Dead, Episode 6. I mentioned that Episode 5 was finally giving us something that felt a little bit more like, okay, this is a bit watchable, and Episode 6 feels like it maybe took a couple steps back. So you know, the show is a little weird. It's like, okay, but what all happened in this episode? I'm just mostly at a loss for words because I think I'm mixing up a little bit of the end of episode 5 with what happened in episode 6. So given all that, we had that various stuff happen. I don't remember how it ended. I don't remember it necessarily ended bad, but it's mostly feels only okay at best, maybe? Maybe. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Season 4, episode 15. Actually, some really interesting stuff set up there as it continues to kind of be in its state where it looks like the entirety of Season 4, Part 2 is this really intense part where some of it is really intense fighting, but some of it is just the super really intense atmosphere. And I think it was not as emphasized on the atmosphere that Belle Cornell is dealing with, but it is, you know, still kind of giving us tidbits here and there of some of the important stuff, and that's the part that I find more interesting. But the word more is kind of the pertinent word there because it's not like the other part isn't interesting. It's actually very interesting. It's just that that other part is more interesting, and I definitely want to see what is going to happen to Belle. What are they going to do? What's the series going to do? It's been good. Let's see. Dr. Stone, Season 3, Episode 4. Let's see. Season 3, Episode 3 had an interesting revelation. And in Episode 4... Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's, I'd say it's continuing to do what one of those things Dr. Stone does. So, I guess you could say there's maybe two elements to Dr. Stone. One of those is kind of the advancing of the scientific ideas there, and the others is just kind of... building up of things, and season 3 is especially more focused on the building up of things. Season 1 kind of emphasized that a little bit because our main characters, you know, kind of woke up and it's like, okay, well, we need food and shelter, and here we're making ridiculously fast scientific advances in order to progress in that way very fast. Whereas season 2, and maybe the same could have season 1, was still dealing with more of the scientific stuff, but maybe not quite as building up, not quite, but then season 3 is back to building up stuff again and just being really interesting in that regard in terms of what it's doing. And so it's continuing to be a good season. My One He Kills Sister, Episode 6. The biggest problem with the show is I'm not sure if what it's doing with its premise is feeling like this is definitely one of those shows that I could probably easily drop if I just lose the motivation or the energy or the show just takes a wrong step. The main problem is there is no real directional goal, I would say. Maybe our main character sort of vaguely has something, but at the same time the show is kind of built around undermining that, and to a certain degree it seems to be leaning heavier and heavier on the, oh, people had a misunderstanding that doesn't make sense why the misunderstanding had to happen in the first place. So, and there could be a bit of a translation inaccuracy in the way that happened, which makes it more obvious that, oh yeah, so that's why it happened. But even at the same time, it's like, it's not the kind of humor that I enjoy. I really don't like when miscommunication is kind of the main thing, and that seems to be kind of the main thing. But I don't know that episode 6 did anything necessarily worse. It introduced a new character for the group, which is, or I guess group is the wrong word. The main cast of characters may be a little more accurate because there's a lot of interactions, but how close all the interactions are long term is definitely been a little more fluid. This isn't like oh, here, I'm going to pick up another person. Oh, I'm going to pick up another person. It's just sort of like discovering another person, and then eventually you may see more interactions with that person or between other people or stuff like that. So it's okay. Probably for the best that it introduced a new character. But at the same time, I'm not sure it has a whole lot else going for it, per se. Mashley, Magic and Muscles, Episode 6. It's continuing to build up our main cast of characters, but it's also continuing to build up, I guess pretty much the setup of, oh, well, this is the situation we're finding ourselves in, and MASH continues to actually make forward progress towards his goal in entertaining ways. Like, there's some elements where you're like, oh, I want to see MASH do this, and he does something sort of like it, but not necessarily that exact thing. So I think it's doing enough stuff that's satisfying without being repetitive, I think. Yeah, I guess it's being fine. Rokudo's Bad Girls, Episode 6. Entertaining episode, I think. The show does a good job of making you not feel like this, oh, the magic spell makes these girls love him, is that bad of a thing. Like, to a certain degree, you kind of feel like, okay, this person shows their love in a slightly different way from the other characters. So it's still them. It's just kind of, they... I was going to say they suddenly had an enjoyment of the color pink, but that's a completely inaccurate description of this. It's more like, they get the bumps when they look at or think of Rokudo. I almost wonder if you could actually probably simulate something like that in real life by like if you surgically implemented something in somebody that released the right hormones when you pressed a button, and you only pressed the button when they looked at you or something like that, which is really creepy, actually. So that's probably a bad description of this. Somehow Rokudo's Bad Girls manages to be at that right balancing point where it's interesting, it's curious, and maybe doesn't entirely feel completely disingenuous. I don't know. Too Cute Crisis, Episode 6. Like I said, the Capybara episode also had llamas. Amusing enough, entertaining enough. Doing its comedy stuff in a slightly different way, which is probably for the best. Because like I said, if it sticks to, oh, well, here's a cat doing a cute cat thing, it'll always be a little off. And that's mostly because most cat animations are going to be kind of limited to the main character, not the main characters, the main creators kind of understanding, and maybe some of the animation limitations where it's like, oh, we want you to animate a cat jumping on a bed, and it kind of is animated in a weird way. Do I remember what the next episode was maybe going to be about? Not exactly. But, this is another one of those shows where there's an interesting idea there, but it could very easily get dropped just because, because I'm not quite sure if there's a good reason to say, oh, I'm going to continue watching. Especially since, like, I was at my brother's place over the weekend, and his wife has been taking care of a hamster, and it's so motherfucking cute. It's just, oh my god. And it's interesting because at the same time I wouldn't want to take care of one. I mean, if I had the responsibility for one, you better believe I would, take the motherfucking care of shit or something. Care the shit out of it or something. I don't know. But at the same time, there's some element of it that's like, yeah, they're not as perceptive of humans as we would maybe prefer as social creatures ourselves. It's interesting because dogs are definitely like the token animal for that, and cats exist on the outer edge of that just enough that you can get it when you need it from cats. But I don't know. All that has to do with I don't know what that has to do with. I kind of went off on a tangent. Hell's Paradise, episode 7. Good episode. This continues to be a really great series. Interesting information learned. Kind of a... I think the series has been good about always having direction and having some interesting character moments where you're like, okay, yeah, this is interesting for this character, this is interesting for this character. And, just... It's not... it almost looks like it's set up to be too distracted by all these other characters, but it's so far it's not been. Like, it's had them in there and they've been interesting, and what they've experienced has been very relevant for what we see for our main character when it does happen. So it's been a good story so far at 7 episodes in. Let's see, Summoned to Another World for a second time, episode 6. Kind of okay, I guess. An interesting, different approach to an episode than what it's been doing up to this point. And done okay for what it was, but I think, like most of the stuff in Summoned to Another World for a second time, I think the main problem is some of the interesting elements of it are just, oh, well, we already kind of did this last time. Sort of. This one's a little weaker in that regard, but at the same time, the setup is just sort of there, but while there are things where we kind of want to have a resolution to certain things, and so we kind of have a desire to watch it, at the same time, it doesn't feel like any of that stuff has to do with the overarching story, even though it does. This one has more to do with the overarching story than it seems like up until you watch all of it and you're like, oh, actually, I guess it has some relevance, but it doesn't feel like that at the time. And, it's a kind of weak series in that regard, but whatever. The Aristocrats of the Worldly Adventure, Serving Gods Who Go Too Far, episode 7. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, did some pretty gutsy stuff. This one, what all did this one do? Some stuff that was entertaining setup. I think the execution could be done a little bit better. Some of it was some faux conflict. But there was also other conflict in there that was just fine and pretty normal for what the show is. And I guess a little bit of revealing of the long-term story and interesting stuff like that. But, it feels a little soft-handed with what it's doing. Maybe a little bit better. Like, it doesn't feel like it's gotten intolerable continuing to watch it. So that's a good thing in its favor. A series could easily get too distracted with what it's trying to do and go in the wrong direction. In Another World with My Smartphone, Season 2, Episode 7. Probably more good smartphone episodes, because this season continues to do the thing that it's like, okay, this is the one thing about the show that is good, and it's building up our main character and the cast immediately around him. Like I mentioned, the previous episode did that. This episode continues to do that. It's good stuff. It's because if it was dealing with some of its other conflicts, sometimes those are not as good, but sometimes they're pretty good. But they're part of the building up stuff in the long run, so I don't know. I got a cheat skill in Another World and became unrivaled in the Real World 2, Episode 7. An okay episode. Once again, I can't help shake the feeling as I watch the show that it would be a lot more satisfying to be binge watching it, because the material that comes out is paced. And I can't say that it's necessarily paced good. I think it is. It's just not paced such that it's burning up all of its good momentum as it is. It's just the problem of I kind of wanted to see a little bit more happen. And maybe that's a good thing. It kind of means every individual episode has fun stuff happening. It didn't feel like they were like dragging their feet or anything like that. It's just that they've set up things and we've still not seen, okay, they've done this and we still haven't seen the other end of that. We're missing an important part of I guess certain story elements that have been put in place. Now, that said, the show can actually still be really good if it still gives us those. It doesn't feel like it's forgotten them. It just kind of feels like, it's sort of doing two things at the same time. And like I said, it does seem to be having a higher priority of showing, oh yes, look at this. Here's another thing with the cute girls, because, it'll pause on their faces
with no animation going on longer, and I think it's fine because it's really neat character design. But like I said, I kind of want to be binging the rest of it. I hope it's more than a single core. That's the rest of it. Let's see. We have why Rileyana ended up at the Duke's Mansion, episode 6. Like I mentioned previous episode, there's also a little bit of risk for this show in terms of its future was starting to feel a little more shaky. Like, do we know what this show is going to want to continue to be? And I think it feels like, okay, the show is actually going to continue being pretty much what it's been up to this point, I feel like. Which is good. It's like it felt like it could easily fall off, start doing something different or irrelevant, and it doesn't feel like it's doing any of that stuff. Maybe introduce some other interesting information, I don't remember. But yeah, I'm continuing to enjoy it and continuing to want to watch it. Dead Mount Death Play, episode 6. I think it was actually a pretty entertaining episode. Continuing on from what happened, kind of similar to Cheat Skill in that, there were certain things I wanted to see what would happen, but it's put those off an episode, but other interesting and notable things have happened. If there was any reason I would think that the other stuff didn't happen, it's the one thing that may be the biggest weakness of the show that it's shown so far. And that's, it feels like it's introducing us to more important characters. Now, if they don't turn out to be important, then it's kind of a waste of our time. It's not giving us what we want. But at the same time, if it gave us what we want a little too quickly, then the show would be out of interesting stuff really quick and burn out too quick. So it's at that place where it's probably still at a good pace. But I guess it's kind of similar to episode 2 from before, where it's just like, well, episode 2 gave us some good stuff. Or maybe it was episode 3. One of those episodes where it's just like, okay, it played a whole lot of catch-up for us, the audience, and it was entertaining. But, still continuing to be a good show. Alright. What else to talk about? Dead by Daylight is sort of staying where it's at. I'm continuing to play that here and there, but I was just highly distracted this weekend by a combination of things. First of all, I was going to say Nintendo, but maybe it's Game Freak. I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe one, maybe the other, maybe neither. Maybe it's just coincidence. But there was a Chestnut Terra-type rock event that happened over the weekend. And thankfully it was pretty easy. A lot of people said it was easy. My winning strategy, I think the winning strategy is to use a grass-type Pokemon. Like, those are the ones to start looking at. And Appleton is probably your best support, because you don't want to try and go through that physical defense stat, because not only is it big, but it uses iron defense at the very beginning. Of course, you could always lower it, but... Excuse me. But still, you pretty much want to hit on the special side. You got to be careful with some of your acid sprayers, because I think they would be weak to some of the attacks, but Appleton and Apple Acid just kind of dissolve all that. He never resets his own stats, so you don't have to do it as quickly to comfortably get rid of him. So I have 2 switches, so that's what I was using as my support Pokemon. For my offense Pokemon is another Pokemon that seems to be able to just do it single-handedly, and even more so if it has somebody lowering the special defense of the enemy Pokemon. And that's Lurantis. That's Lurantis primarily using Leaf Storm and with a contrary ability, so every time it attacks, instead of its special attack going down, the special attack goes up. You give it Shell Bell, and if it's doing enough damage, it's just healing absolutely everything away. And if you're lucky like me and one of the NPCs brings a Pokemon that knows Taunt, then it's pretty much the Chestnut is just doing absolutely no damage. Out there in the real world, I bet okay, yeah. You need to use somebody that knows Chilling Water. I was thinking that Spirit Break would do it, but that lowers special attack, I think. But I was just thinking there's probably a support Pokemon that's really good for lowering that special attack. I guess Snarl can do it too. You just have to be careful. Snarl is a dark type, usually comes from dark type Pokemon. They're going to be weak to Hammer Arm, which is a powerful physical type attack. Granted, if you get rid of enough physical damage, then who the F cares? Probably burning it is also a really good idea, just to have that attack stat. Make it do nothing. So overall, it was nice and easy. Got it out of the way, which is good because then I could play Tears of the Kingdom as my primary other focus. But Dead by Daylight was still a little there in the background. It's just mostly I'm putting blood points into killers. I've now got all but 5 of the killers with all perks on them. I'm working on one of those. So that number's starting to get nice and small. I might be able to do that this year. Probably not before the next chapter drops, because once we get information about that, I have to be more careful with my blood points in order to make sure whatever new survivor, killer, whatever comes out, that I can dump blood points into that to catch them back up so that I'm, back down to those remaining 5 killers and stuff like that. So, with all that said, obviously the primary game of choice is Tears of the Kingdom, but I did spend most of the day Saturday at my brother's place, so I didn't get to play it, and then when I got home I was just so exhausted I slept till Sunday, so, and I've been playing it real slow. I think I played Breath of the Wild pretty slow. I'm playing this one, so I'm not even out of the first intro main area. So in Breath of the Wild, this would have been the equivalent to the raised area that I forgot what it was called that you started at in. And while I'm pretty sure the one in Tears of the Kingdom is bigger, I'm still in its version of that. I have not opened up big things. I've only done my 3rd shrine. So, yeah, it's still, I'm moving slowly, but what do I think about it so far? So far it's been very entertaining, nice and pleasant. It hasn't been so addictive that I have to jump on it and play it, which is kind of surprising, but I guess, the reason it would be kind of surprising is I was starting to talk about the Jigglypuff plushie story. So what's going on there is my workplace is a month from now going to try to have people coming back into the office. I say try, that may be putting it a little lighter than it actually is. They're insisting very strongly on it. And I'm probably okay with that because I'm like a 5-minute drive away from the office. So my commute is actually not that bad. But, there's this kind of existential dread you get whenever your life routine is going to change. Whether it's for the better or the worst. Or in this case, I don't know. But, big lifestyle changes do tend to kind of weigh on you. And I think that contributed some to my exhaustion, as I was just feeling that. And like I was saying, that would be something where normally retreating into a video game is a thing to do, and this is one of those games where you can retreat into it if you really want to. But I guess as long as I have routine, that allows me to kind of not stay in there and kind of do stuff. But the plushie has to do with that, in that basically while I was visiting my brother, we ended up visiting GameStop, and whenever I walk into a store, I like to at least consider buying stuff, spending stuff. It's a thing where it's like, if they're going to be accepting people just coming in, you're going to have a lot of people that come in and don't buy anything. But me, I'm not having to watch my finances that carefully, so I can at least make it where, they have people buying stuff. So, I got the mug, I got the plushie, because if I'm going back to the office, I definitely want a desk. I don't want to do the flex desk hunting crap that they have right now, because at that point, there's no routine. If there's no routine, it just becomes pure stress. And if it's pure stress, I might actually leave. But if I have a desk, that's a place to go to, and in order to make it my desk, I like to put things. I have like a stuffed Sylveon, and now there's a stuffed Jigglypuff to go with it. I kind of like to decorate with the pink stuff, just because it's kind of what in the world, and also the highly colorful anime stuff. So, like, I have entire Evolution keychains that, don't remember where I had them set up before, but it doesn't matter. They're still in the boxes over there. I still have a step stool over there from replacing light bulbs. But they're in the boxes over there, and those boxes are going to go back into the office to start populating my cubicle. Or gosh darn it, I'll said they kind of had a bad idea because they were the ones talking about routine. And it's like, yeah, it's a really good description of what I need. But yeah, you know that existential feeling of dread you get from something big changing. I know I've always felt it when I started my jobs, whenever I had to leave jobs, and then start the next job, and then leave, and then start, and then leave. I think I don't remember it happening when we moved to working from home at the beginning of the COVID shit, but it was probably there. I was probably... maybe at that time it was hard to tell because it's just like, you know, it pretty much doesn't matter what you thought about, where you land on your thoughts about it. That time was just... everybody had a headache. Maybe for different reasons, but just like, you know, in that chaos, also switching to working from home. If you're wondering why I don't like it so much, it's because I have all this fucking stuff, you know, it's distracting. It's also a real problem, especially since I've become a go-to person for questions at work, where people ask me questions without any regard for the fact that I'm already looking into just one person's thing and two other people ask me something, and when you're a fourth person asking for a thing, you know, it does drive you a little wild. It's why my phone has been on Do Not Disturb forever, because the front gate calls me and I can't get interrupted anymore. The spammers are bad enough, but now when people from the front gate... So, not bad times, but definitely, you know, times of just like, guess we're going to have to see what's going to happen. Anyways, tabletop games, it's good. Anime, it's good. Tears of the Kingdom, it's good. So things are good otherwise. So hopefully nothing here worried y'all. It was just a hopefully interesting story. But I think that pretty much wraps up absolutely everything I was going to talk about. I'm sure the video is another long one. I'll have to figure out what my upload schedule looks like. Most likely, I'll still be recording them Monday nights and Tuesday mornings. Before I go into work, I would be able to start uploading video to YouTube. And then when I get home from work, after visiting the restaurant that I eat at on Tuesday nights, technically I don't eat out there, I pick up from there and bring it home. So after I take care of that, then I'll probably come here and publish. So it might mean videos get published like an hour or two later on Tuesdays compared to what I currently do. But we'll have to see. It may also fall through the cracks for some reason. I doubt it. But, you know, our company's under new ownership, so it's kind of one of those things where we're a little bit waiting just to see what happens next. Alright. That's everything. Y'all, have a nice week.